I've been sitting with the 1923 finale for days now, and honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. On one hand, it gave us some sense of closure. Well, at least it tried to, or at least that's what we were led to believe. But on the other, it left me with this nagging, almost unsatisfied feeling, as though the story I'd invested so much time and energy into just wasn't finished. It felt like there was this huge buildup, all this tension, all these incredible moments, and yet, in the end, it almost felt like we were rushed to the next chapter of the Yellowstone universe, without really being allowed to properly say goodbye to the one we'd grown so attached to. As a fan, it's frustrating, because we were promised resolution, something to tie up the loose ends and give us the satisfaction of a well-earned ending. But instead, we're left with more questions, more unresolved storylines, and a lingering sense that the real conclusion is still out there, just out of reach. I mean, how is it possible to feel so unfinished after investing so much time into a series? What did we actually get here? Was it the payoff we deserved, or was it all just a setup for something else? Let's dive in and unpack everything, because there's a lot to process here, and I'm sure I'm not the only one feeling conflicted about how this all ended. The good news is that the next chapter in the 1923 saga is going to be a direct continuation of everything we've seen so far. The bad news? Well, it's not going to be the same show we've come to know and love. Let me explain. Throughout 1923, we've been on one of the most intense and emotional journeys in television history. We followed Spencer Dutton through treacherous oceans, brutal war zones, and relentless heartache. His journey wasn't just about survival, it was about facing impossible odds, enduring unimaginable trauma, and navigating the overwhelming weight of family legacy. And let's not forget the insane amount of violence. Seriously, Spencer has become a one-man army. I mean, at this point, he could give Rambo a serious run for his money. Every episode felt like a new battle, where Spencer took down at least one enemy, each kill adding to his already tragic, but necessary, path. Talk about a man on a mission, a man who has no choice but to keep moving forward, no matter the cost. But now, as we finally reach the 1923 Season 2 finale, Spencer is back in Montana. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. The moment we've spent an entire season anticipating. It should have been a triumphant homecoming, a celebration of Spencer's return to the place he calls home after all the hell he's been through. After the bloodshed, the war, the loss, and the heartbreak, Spencer's return should have felt like the ultimate victory, a moment of relief and redemption. But when that moment actually arrived, it wasn't as satisfying as I had hoped. There was something off about it. There was a strange emptiness in the air, like the reunion we had all envisioned didn't fully materialize. It's as if, after all the anticipation, this moment felt flat. For me, Spencer's long-awaited return didn't hit with the emotional punch I thought it would. In fact, it left me feeling somewhat hollow. I'm still trying to piece together why it didn't have the impact it should have. Maybe it's because Spencer, despite all his heroism, is still a man deeply scarred by the journey he's been on. He's been through so much physically, emotionally, and psychologically that no single moment of homecoming can truly erase the trauma he's experienced. Perhaps it's that these deep wounds don't just disappear in a single scene. Or maybe it's because we've spent so much time watching Spencer's journey that we expected more than just a dramatic return. We wanted something that felt earned, something deeper, something that acknowledged not just the hero Spencer has become, but also the broken man he is underneath. When you invest so much in a character's arc, you expect their return to be nothing short of monumental. So, why does it feel like we were left with something far less? Was the anticipation too high? Or did the writers miss the chance to really bring Spencer's homecoming to life in the way we deserved? This moment should have been a victory lap, a crowning achievement, but instead it felt like just another step in his long, winding journey. And honestly, it's a bit hard to shake that feeling of missed potential. I know it's hard to put into words, but there's a sense that the weight of Spencer's past wasn't fully addressed in this homecoming. It almost felt like we were just pushed forward, too quickly, into what comes next without giving this moment the time and respect it deserved. This could be a setup for something bigger, but at this point, I can't help but feel like we were left wanting more from this pivotal return. Spencer's return to Montana was supposed to be the dramatic payoff we've all been waiting for, right? But when he shows up, takes down 5 men, shoots Donald in the head, and just like that, it's all over. I have to ask myself, is that really how we're going to wrap up this massive arc? After all the buildup, all the years of waiting for Spencer to come back and face down the biggest challenges, the man who was supposed to be the savior of the ranch, the one who would put an end to the chaos, this was the resolution we get. It doesn't sit right with me. Sure, I've been cheering for Spencer the entire time, hoping that he'd come in and finally bring peace to the ranch. And I was genuinely excited to see him return. But when I break it down, I can't help but feel that the way this whole thing played out was rushed, almost too easy. Did it really take just one surprise visit and a single bullet to take down Donald, the most powerful businessman in the entire state of Montana? Just like that, no struggle, no intricate planning, no real consequences? Donald's death, while satisfying in a surface-level sense, felt far too simple, far too quick. It almost feels like we were robbed of the opportunity to truly witness the full weight of the conflict unfold. After everything Spencer went through his incredible journey across oceans, through war zones, the trauma, the heartbreak, did he really deserve to come back only to have his entire arc wrapped up with a single action sequence and one quick shot? Where was the emotional weight? Where was the hard-fought victory that Spencer had earned over the course of his journey? Instead of a moment that felt deeply earned and satisfying, this felt like a rushed conclusion to a storyline that should have carried more significance. Spencer, the man who had been through so much, deserved more than just a brief return and a clean, simple resolution. His story deserved depth, a closure that spoke to the years of buildup and the emotional cost of the journey he had taken. But instead, it almost feels like the writers took the easy way out, giving us a resolution that left us wanting more and certainly didn't deliver the emotional payoff we were hoping for. I don't know about you, but for me, this whole thing doesn't quite make sense. Sure, we've all been desperate for closure, but this felt way too rushed for all the tension that had been building up. After all this time, was the payoff truly worth the wait? Or did it all just fall flat? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to hear if you felt the same way. Was this finale everything you hoped for, or did it leave you feeling just as empty and unsatisfied as it did for me? Now, let's talk about the pacing of that finale, because to me, it was an absolute disaster. It felt like the entire season's worth of plot lines was shoved into just 2 hours, racing toward some kind of resolution without giving any of it the time it needed to breathe. We didn't just speed through the story, it felt like we bulldozed right over it, leaving crucial emotional beats and key moments in the dust. By the end of it, I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. I don't know about you, but honestly, it felt like I'd been hit by a bus. Was I the only one who felt completely overwhelmed by how rushed the finale was, or did you guys feel the same way? Let me know. I'm genuinely curious to hear if I'm the only one who felt this way. Now, despite everything that happened, I can't lie, Alexander's death absolutely wrecked me. After everything she had endured, her strength, her resilience, and her unwavering journey alongside Spencer, there's no denying that she deserved so much better than what she got. Heck, she deserved 100 times better. But the way her loss was handled, it didn't feel like a powerful plot twist or a truly heartbreaking moment. No, it felt more like the show just couldn't bear to let Spencer have even the smallest shred of happiness. After everything he had gone through, you would think they'd allow him some kind of peace, right? But instead, the show seemed to lean into the tragedy simply because that's what Taylor Sheridan seems to think defines history pain, loss, and more pain. And at this point, it's really starting to feel repetitive. The constant cycle of suffering and tragedy is wearing thin. I can't be the only one who's rolling their eyes at this, can I? Am I the only one who's tired of watching this endless cycle of heartache? Let me know if you feel the same way in the comments because I honestly can't be the only one at this point. Don't get me wrong. I understand that tragedy is a core part of the 1923 narrative. The show thrives on its darker, grittier elements, and I get that. But I genuinely thought we might end this chapter with Spencer and Alexandra finally finding some semblance of peace. They've been through hell and back, and after all the war, the bloodshed, the heartbreak, didn't they deserve a moment of hope? Maybe even starting a family, raising the next generation of Duttons together, something that would offer a glimmer of light after everything they'd faced. Fight me in the comments if you want, but I honestly think that would have been a satisfying and earned ending. It would have given us, as viewers, something to hold on to, a sense of catharsis after watching these characters go through so much. But no. Instead, we're told off-screen that Spencer lives until 1969, dies at Alexandra's grave, and somehow had a relationship with another woman, a widow who bore him a child. But he never married her? And we're just expected to accept that as the conclusion to Spencer's complex character arc. No closure, no emotional payoff, just a rushed wrap-up to tie things up quickly. It feels like a slap in the face, don't you think? We've invested so much in these characters, their journeys, their growth, and yet we're left with an unsatisfying conclusion that doesn't feel earned. It's like they didn't want to give us the ending we deserved. And I don't know about you, but I can't just accept that. I feel robbed of the resolution that was promised to us. All right, I think it's time we all take a step back and try to look at the bigger picture. I know a lot of what we've seen in the finale feels frustrating, even downright silly, but we have to remember this is all part of a larger setup for the future of the Yellowstone franchise. And by future, I mean 1944, which, let's be real, is basically going to be 1923 Season 3. From what we know so far, 1944 is going to dive into Spencer's backstory, explaining why he acted the way he did, who this mysterious widow is, and what became of the child they had. And let's not forget, 1944 is already in the works and scheduled for release in 2026. Rumor has it that Brandon Slenner might even return as Spencer, which, honestly, gives me a glimmer of hope. There's still so much more story to tell, and if Spencer is at the heart of it, you can bet I'll be watching even if I'm still grieving Alexandra's loss. I've already ranted about Alexandra's tragic death, but if there's one character who truly got the short end of the stick in every possible way, it's Elizabeth. Honestly, it's hard to overstate just how much this woman has been through. Elizabeth has fought for survival in ways that most people could never even begin to understand. The moment she entered the world of the Duttons, her life was forever marked by sacrifice, loss, and unimaginable pain. She killed a man in cold blood to protect the ranch, a decision that no one should ever have to make. Then, she watched as she lost Jack, the love of her life, in the most gut-wrenching, heart-shattering way possible. But that wasn't the end of her suffering. She endured physical injuries, relentless emotional pain, and a constant struggle to be seen, to be heard, in a world that seemed hell-bent on ignoring her. She gave everything she had, including pieces of herself, for this family, for the ranch, for the legacy of the Duttons. And yet, when we finally reach the finale, it's like all of that everything she sacrificed was just erased. Elizabeth, who had been through literal hell, is brushed aside like she's an afterthought, like she doesn't matter anymore. It felt like the show didn't know what to do with her once Jack was gone, so they just sidelined her, pushing her out of the way without a second thought. Even Kara, someone I've always admired, completely dismisses her. There's no warmth, no acknowledgement of Elizabeth's incredible resilience. No thank you for all she's done for the family. After everything Elizabeth has fought for and sacrificed, the show treated her with such cold indifference. Honestly, it was downright cruel. To me, Elizabeth's treatment in the finale felt like a slap in the face. She wasn't given the chance to stand as her own person or be recognized for her strength. Instead, it felt as though she was just a placeholder, a character thrown in to fill the void left by Jack's death. That's not just disrespectful to her journey, but also to the audience that has rooted for her, watched her struggle and fight through everything that was thrown her way. She deserved so much more than this. She deserved to be recognized for the complex, brave, and truly human character she is. Instead, we got an ending that felt cold, dismissive, and frankly, heartless. Elizabeth deserved better. She deserved an ending that honored her journey, her sacrifice, and her resilience. And here's what really stings. The worst part is that Kara didn't even acknowledge the most important thing of all: Elizabeth is pregnant. This is Jack's child, a Dutton heir, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. That's the future of the Dutton bloodline right there, but it wasn't even mentioned. Not a single word of promise that this child would continue the legacy, that they would be a part of the family, or even an acknowledgement of the child's importance. Instead, it feels like Kara acted as though, since she's holding Spencer's son in her arms, she doesn't need another grandchild. It's baffling, honestly. Elizabeth's child is treated like an afterthought, like they're irrelevant, and that's the biggest oversight of all. I can't understand how the writers could miss such an important moment, especially when it clearly sets up the future of the Dutton legacy. And yet, I have this nagging feeling that this isn't the end for Elizabeth or her child. With the teased arrival of the Madison, the sequel set in present-day Montana, there's so much more at play here than meets the eye. The Madison is set around a family from New York who unexpectedly find themselves in Montana due to an inheritance they never saw coming. On the surface, they're not connected to the Duttons, but something tells me this isn't the full picture. I've got a hunch that the connection between the Madison and the Duttons runs much deeper than we've been led to believe. What if these new characters, the family at the heart of the Madison, are actually the grandchildren or great-grandchildren of Elizabeth and Jack? Despite their deep ties to the Dutton family, Elizabeth and Jack were never truly embraced by the main Dutton branch. They were somewhat cast aside, excluded from the legitimate family line, but their bloodline still carries the Dutton legacy. If these new characters are indeed their descendants, it would create a fascinating story about a family that carries the Dutton name but was never truly accepted into the fold. These characters would have inherited the Dutton bloodline, but not the family's respect or acknowledgement. It could be a rich, multi-layered narrative that explores what it means to carry the legacy of a family that turned its back on you. Now, that's a story I'd love to see unfold. The future of the Duttons may be far more complicated than we realize. The idea of belonging to a legacy that has rejected you is incredibly powerful. It taps into the complex emotions of being part of something greater than yourself, but never truly feeling like you're part of it. And in the case of the Madison, where these characters would be living in the shadows of the Duttons, trying to carve out their own identity while carrying the weight of a name that's never truly been theirs, it could lead to some incredible storytelling. The so-called legitimate Duttons, still clinging to their bloodline and power, might be faced with the uncomfortable reality that their family tree is far more complicated than they ever realized. It's a story that could explore the tension of legacy, acceptance, and the ongoing struggle for identity and belonging in a family that has always refused to acknowledge you. Now that's a narrative worth following. So where does this leave us? Well, according to the latest news, 1923 is officially done. There won't be a season 3, but with 1944 and the Madison on the horizon, the story is far from finished. And while I'm genuinely excited to see what's coming next, I can't help but feel a little let down by how 1923 wrapped up. It left a lot of questions unanswered, and honestly, I wish it had given us more closure not just for the characters, but for us, the fans, who've been on this ride from the start. But hey, that's just my take. I'd love to hear what you think. Did the finale work for you, or did it leave you wanting more? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you want to stay up to date on everything Yellowstone and beyond, be sure to like and follow for weekly updates. And while you're here, check out the video on the screen. I think it might interest you. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.